He was a hero, a man who, despite his disability, had climbed all 14 of the world's highest peaks. But on the summit of Annapurna, everything went wrong. And what happened next defied all logic. Kim Hong-bin wasn't just another climber chasing records. He had lost all of his fingers to frostbite decades earlier. Most people would have walked away from the mountains forever. But Kim didn't stop. He kept climbing, proving again and again that determination could beat even the harshest odds. In July 2021, after reaching the top of Annapurna in Nepal, Kim radioed in a victory message. He had done it, finished his goal of climbing all 14 8,000-meter peaks. But just hours later, that celebration turned into panic. Kim had gone missing on the descent, somewhere in the death zone. What followed was an intense international search, with helicopters, rescuers, and climbers from around the world trying to find him. But the mountain stayed silent, until, weeks later, something was found, and it shocked everyone. This is the true story of Kim Hong-bin, his strength, his climb, and the unbelievable ending that no one saw coming. Kim Hong-bin was more than just a mountaineer. He was a symbol of courage, not just in South Korea, but around the world. Born in 1964, Kim didn't grow up dreaming of fame or glory. He found climbing in his 20s, and it quickly became his passion. But everything changed in 1991 during a climb in Alaska. He got caught in a brutal storm, and frostbite set in. The damage was so bad that doctors had to amputate all 10 of his fingers. For most people, that would have been the end of climbing. But not for Kim. He trained harder than ever, learning to adapt to life and climbing without fingers. He used special tools and techniques, adjusted his gear, and rebuilt his strength. His goal? To become the first disabled person to summit all 14 of the world's 8,000-meter peaks. And he did it. Over 2 decades, Kim took on the deadliest mountains in the world: Everest, K2, Lhotse, Makalu, and more. He faced avalanches, freezing winds, and the constant threat of death. But he never backed down. People called him the fingerless hero, but he didn't want pity. He wanted people to know that anything is possible if you refuse to give up. By the time he reached Annapurna in 2021, Kim was a legend. But no one knew that this mountain, the last one on his list, would be the one to take him. If you're still here, thanks for watching. If you're enjoying the story, a quick like or sub means a lot. Let's continue. Annapurna is known as one of the most dangerous mountains in the world. It's not the tallest, but it has one of the highest death rates among climbers. The weather changes fast, the terrain is unstable, and avalanches are common. But for Kim Hong-bin, this was the final step in completing his life's goal. In July 2021, Kim joined a team of international climbers to take on Annapurna. He had already climbed 13 of the 8,000-meter peaks. Annapurna was number 14, the last one. The climb wasn't just about finishing a checklist. It was personal. It was proof that his disability hadn't stopped him from doing something that even the best climbers in the world struggled to achieve. The expedition was tough. The weather wasn't on their side, and oxygen levels at that altitude are dangerously low. But on July 18th, Kim reached the summit. He radioed in to let his team and his country know. He had made it. South Korea celebrated. He had become the first disabled person in history to climb all 14 of the world's highest peaks. But joy quickly turned to fear. On the way down, something went wrong. While descending through a narrow section filled with ice and snow, Kim fell into a crevasse, essentially a deep crack in the glacier. His team was with him, but getting him out was nearly impossible. The terrain was steep and dangerous, and they were already exhausted from the climb. Other climbers tried to help. They used ropes and gear, but the conditions were getting worse by the minute. At some point, Kim slipped further out of reach and vanished. Just hours after completing one of the greatest achievements in mountaineering, Kim was gone. And with the weather closing in, hope started to fade fast. When Kim Hong-bin fell, time became the enemy. Every minute in the death zone, the area above 8,000 meters, is a battle for survival. Oxygen is scarce. Temperatures can drop to -40 degrees, and even the strongest climbers struggle to stay conscious. His team immediately called for help. A rescue mission was launched, but Annapurna's location and weather made everything harder. Helicopters were grounded because of snow and high winds. Ground teams tried to reach the area, but the terrain was unstable, full of deep snow and ice. Every step was dangerous. What made this even more heartbreaking was that they knew where Kim had fallen. He wasn't missing in the broad sense, he was trapped. But because of the narrow ice chute and vertical cliffs, no one could reach him safely. International climbers and rescue teams stepped up. The governments of South Korea, Pakistan, and China all got involved. There was talk of using drones, special equipment, and even military helicopters. But the mountain didn't care about politics or borders. Days turned into a week, then 2. The weather got worse and the trail grew cold. The search was eventually called off, and Kim was declared missing and presumed dead. His family and fans were devastated. One moment he was at the top of the world, literally, and the next he was gone without a trace. News spread around the globe, and tributes poured in. But something still didn't feel complete. People wanted answers. They wanted closure. And then, weeks later, something happened. A discovery no one expected. One that would change how the story of Kim Hong-bin would be remembered forever. Weeks after Kim Hong-bin disappeared, hope had mostly faded. The mountain had gone quiet again. Annapurna had claimed another life, and many believed Kim would never be found. But then, a shocking update came from across the border, nowhere near where anyone had been looking. A Pakistani helicopter flying a rescue mission on Broad Peak, another 8,000-meter mountain, spotted something strange near a glacier. It was a body, partially buried in snow and ice. At first, no one believed it could be Kim. How could someone disappear on Annapurna in Nepal and show up near Broad Peak, hundreds of miles away in Pakistan? But this is where the story takes a twist. It turned out the body wasn't Kim Hong-bin. That initial report was a case of mistaken identity. The discovery on Broad Peak belonged to another missing climber. Yet the confusion reignited attention around Kim's disappearance. It pushed teams to take a second look at satellite data, photos, and information from his last known position. Eventually, using drone footage and high-resolution images, rescuers were able to confirm that Kim's body had remained near the crevasse where he fell. The mountain had hidden him well, but he never left Annapurna. The real unbelievable part wasn't that he was found miles away. It was that for weeks, his body had been just out of reach the entire time. The conditions had finally cleared enough to spot what the weather had been hiding all along. His remains were never recovered. Annapurna still holds them, but the confirmation gave his family and country something they desperately needed: closure. Kim Hong-bin's story didn't end on Annapurna. In many ways, it became even more powerful after his death. People around the world began to look deeper into who he was and what he stood for. Kim wasn't just a climber. He was a fighter, a role model, and a symbol of hope. After losing all his fingers, he could have quit. Most people would have. But instead, he set a goal that even the world's best climbers struggled to reach: climb all 14 of the world's tallest mountains. And he did it. His story became a source of inspiration, not just for climbers, but for anyone living with a disability, facing setbacks, or dealing with pain. He proved that determination and heart matter more than physical limits. In South Korea, Kim was honored as a national hero. He was posthumously inducted into the country's Sports Hall of Fame. Schools taught his story, news outlets shared his interviews, and young athletes looked up to him not for his achievements alone, but for the way he kept going when everything told him to stop. Across the mountaineering community, his name now sits alongside legends. Not because he was the fastest or the strongest, but because he was the most determined. Even in death, Kim continues to inspire. He showed the world what real strength looks like. And he reminded everyone that sometimes the greatest victories happen after the hardest climbs. Kim Hong Bin's story is one of those that stays with you. Not because of how it ended, but because of how he lived. He didn't climb for fame, and he didn't let tragedy stop him. He climbed for something deeper, because it was part of who he was. When he stood on the summit of Annapurna, he reached a goal that took him decades to finish. He had done what no other disabled climber had ever done. And even though the mountain claimed him just hours later, it couldn't take away everything he had achieved. Kim taught us that you don't need to be perfect to do something incredible. You just need heart. He faced pain, loss, and the cold reality of life after injury, but he never gave up. And that's what makes him a true hero. Today, the world remembers Kim Hong Bin not as the climber who vanished, but as the man who showed us what real courage looks like. His body may have stayed on Annapurna, but his spirit climbs with every person who dares to try again, even when the odds are against them. Rest in peace, Kim. You reached higher than most ever will. If you're finding this story as powerful as we are, make sure to hit the like button. It really helps more people discover inspiring stories like Kim's. And if you want more real-life adventures and mysteries from the world's highest places, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. We've got more coming.